Radio Cairo, FM 95.4. The Voice of Egypt.
The best variety of yesterday and today.
All variety of music.
A little bit of everything.
This is
Cairo Radio 95.4. 25789-407. SMS 4412.
It's fun. Perfect.
It's Radio Cairo and it's exactly 4 o'clock. This is World of Info. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk and Dua Muhammad is at the controls. Well, it's another hot afternoon in the capital of Egypt, Cairo, and today is Thursday as usual, and we are coming live from Studio 3. Our direct phone number is 2578-9407, and today is the World of Books from the World of Info. And you know the rules of the game. Well, the rules are very simple. My advice to you about these books: should we read them, toss it, or skim it? And usually these books deserve to be read. Well, I'm bringing to you today 4 books. I hope that you will be interested in them. The first book is carrying a very unpleasant title, but I think it's a must-read. It's called The Emperor of All Melodies, a biography of cancer, and by the one and only Siddhartha Mukherjee, who is a very talented Indian physician. He's working in the University of New York in New York, and he is at the same time a writer. And for him, and he's a cancer specialist, so he is the one to be consulted about this terrible topic. The second book is by Khalid al-Khamisi, the famous Egyptian writer who writes very few books, or one book every 2 or 3 years, and every book I think deserves to be read. And his new book on the market is called Ash-Shamandar by Khalid al-Khamisi. Well, the third book is by Dr. Iman Yahya, and it's called The Mexican Wife. And, quote unquote, it's a novel, so it is not a true story. Or is it? That's what we're going to discuss. And the third book is another book by, or written to describe the Vincent's portraits. And by Vincent, we are talking about Vincent van Gogh. And the writer is Ralph Ski. So, this is a small glimpse in the world of Vincent van Gogh. So today, 4 books, 2 from Europe and the States, and 2 from Egypt. And after the break, we'll start right away. So today is the World of Books, and we are discussing a beautiful book written by Siddhartha Mukherjee, and it is definitely a book that deserves to be read, and it is a bitter book, a book that you will feel absorbed in reading it. It's written in a very beautiful prose, and it's dealing with a very difficult subject: The Emperor of All Melodies, a biography of cancer. So who is Siddhartha Mukherjee? Well, he's the man to write this book because he is a professor in cancer medicine, and he is working in Columbia University, and he is one of the practicing physicians in Columbia, in the medical center of Columbia in New York. And at the same time, his sister Rano Mukherjee is a dear friend, and she is the wife of a dear friend of mine, Sanjay Bashtare, who was the Indian ambassador in Cairo. So unfortunately I never met Professor Mukherjee, but I read the book, and I felt that the way that he has written this book can give you real emotional experience, and at the same time a total biography of a malady, of a disease that unfortunately is the emperor of all maladies. And he describes the success and the failures, and many times the very much great failures that the physicians in such specialty meet, how people thought, and how the ancient Egyptians, who were very wise physicians by the way, has written in their papyrus and described some of the cancer maladies, and written in the description after describing clinically the disease, they would say, we have no treatment for it. How bitter is this word? How bitter is this sentence? Well, this sentence was very common many years, and for many, many years. And one of the very, shall we say, centuries, until even in the 19th century, when people decided or tried to understand the presence of the blood diseases such as the leukemia, and finding a description of it, whether they were able to describe it microscopically or through specimens, and at the same time to find how patients pass away very easily. How the progress in this specialty was very slow and hard, and times were so harsh, and the desperation of the physicians forced some surgeons, like Halsted, the famous emperor of cancer surgery, of breast cancer surgery, to advance in his surgery maximally, to the maximum, by doing what we call brutal surgery. Surgery that excise and increase and aggressively excise a lot of tissues. And when we excise a lot of tissues, unfortunately, the results are not as happy as it should be, and not satisfactory as it should be. When on the other side, physicians decided that they are going to start to use chemicals to inhibit the growth of the tumor, well, they have seen success and they have seen failure. And through the hope and despair, how people started to make lobbying in order to make pressure on the governments, especially on the government of the United States, to invest more in cancer research, to invest more in cancer treatment, and to acknowledge the presence of this disease as a vital cause for death and jeopardy. And how the carcinogenic factors of smoking was totally fought for some time by the tobacco companies, trying to deny that smoking causes cancer, to increase their immense amount of money and profit that they are gaining every day, or should we say every second, and how much this has taken from the medical world to fight the presence of the smoking advertisement until 1970, when the last advertisement of smoking passed on air in the last day of 1970. So we are discussing in this book by the talented writer Dr. Siddhartha Mukherjee, how he was able to see for his own self how this specialty has progressed slowly but surely, and how unfortunately are the patients who are subjected to the feeling that this is an erratic illness and a disease, because nobody really could tell or approve that this disease will surely disappear, or will surely enter into remission, or will recur again. Every time there is a success story, there are other failure stories of failure. Every life which is won has another life that it is lost. It's a great fight of human beings against cancer. It's a depressing book, but enriching one. It's a book that gives us despair, but at the same time gives us a lot of hope. It's a book which is written to the common man, not for a physician like me, but it has a lot of medical information that are necessary for the readers to understand and to appreciate. Maybe this book, if you read it, you will be forced to quit smoking or ask your loved ones to quit smoking. Maybe if this book you read will make you feel the pain of the people who are suffering from cancer and appreciate their hopes, their despairs, their pain. Maybe this book will let you appreciate the health and thank God for the happiness that we are living to. They say in an Egyptian saying which says that the worst betrayal is when your health betrays you. And after I read this book, and I felt that this is the worst betrayal. May all our listeners have health and time to enjoy this health. May all our listeners understand the melody and understand what is written in this book, and appreciate, and I really appreciate the fact that this book has been translated officially into Arabic language with permission from the author. And this will give you a chance to read a very good translation, not only of the words and the prose of Professor Mukherjee, but also the feelings and the emotions of a highly intellectual man writing about his speciality and the Emperor of all melodies. So, the Emperor of all melodies, a mammoth book, a large and maybe 600 pages, should we say almost 600 pages, about the Emperor of all melodies, a book that deserves to be read. So, we're still listening to the world of books and coming live from Studio 3 in the world of info, FM 95.4, and you can call us at 257-89407, and we're coming directly to you live. Well, we talked about the Emperor of all melodies. Let's shift to another book by Khalid al-Khamisi. Khalid al-Khamisi is definitely a very talented writer. He has written short stories in one book that has been a very big bestseller, and is called Taxi. And his second book was Safinat Nuh, and it was a beautiful book that was published in the year 2010, I believe, or something like that. And it was really a very interesting book about people who are immigrating legally and illegally. Well, this beautiful book that has been released 2019 is called Ash-Shamandar. And Khalid al-Khamisi is embedding himself in the skin and the body of the champion of this novel. And this man who becomes the writer is an artist, a painter, by hobby and by profession. And through the life of this man, he says that this is simply the memoirs of Shihab al-Shamandar. And this Shihab al-Shamandar was a famous painter, and every chapter in the book is describing a painting and why he painted it, and the circumstances that pushed him to paint this painting, and his life as it goes through. Well, this is a very intelligent way in noveling and writing a novel. We are totally convinced that the writer is Shihab al-Shamandar. But we know that it is not, it is Khalid al-Khamisi. So Khalid al-Khamisi as a writer has dissociated himself from the hero or the main character of this novel, Shihab al-Shamandar. Who is Shihab al-Shamandar? How did he live? And why did he live? Well, this is very philosophical, and I'm not going to tell you the plot of the story. I'm leaving you to enjoy the pages of the beautiful prose of Khalid al-Khamisi, and I'm leaving you to feel the suspense of a young child as he is living in the household of his grandmother, living under the patronage of his mother and under the protection of his aunt, who has a very sharp tongue, who is married to a very decent young man. And at the same time, the stepfather that he has, and the very complicated relation that this main character, Shihab al-Shamandar, is having with his stepfather, and how this stepfather, who had no children, considered Shihab to be his son, and him, and how the relationship has evolved through the pages of the novel, from an indifference from the side of Shihab to a real love and appreciation of the man who was a very important person at that time in Cairo. Oh yes, so we're talking about Shihab. Where is the father of Shihab? Well, the father of Shihab has his role. He divorced his mother, but he has the role in the novel. And as we pass through the pages, we'll find out what the father did to the son, and at the same time the complicated relation between the father and the son. Well, a painter by nature is an emotional man. And as an emotional man, he will definitely has a lot of emotional relations and relations that he is going to pass through. And Khalil Khamisi is not giving any excuses for Shahab for doing whatever he's doing. Why he got married to whatever he got married to do, why he has split his engagement, why did he go into endless affairs with ladies, why he was very courageous to keep a relation and very coward to end one of them. What happened? This can be self-explanatory when we understand the nature of an artist. An artist is a free soul, and an artist who loves painting, who has painted all his way through from lack of money and lack of amount of money to complete fulfillment as a very famous painter. How he ended up with a real beautiful wife, and how he described the relation between himself and his wife should be the last words that we're going to discuss about the Shamandar, written by Khalil Khamisi. Well, he claims that his wife, Duha, is a very complicated lady, and she is a lady of morals, a very great self-discipline. And he says that if people should be divided from the scale to from 1 to 100, his wife should have the number 100 in the self-discipline and in the self-righteous behavior, and at the same time in the feelings of remorse and kindness. So for him and for us, though we have seen Duha in very few pages, we can imagine how beautiful this character was, and how unhappy she was, and how complicated was her life story. So I cannot describe to you every minutest details about Shahab Shamandar, but I can promise you that this is a very good summer read. So enjoy the reading of Shamandar by Khalil Khamisi and tell me what you think after you read it. So this is World of Info, and today is the World of Books. Well, it's the World of Info, and today we are listening to the World of Books. And we are discussing more books to come, and another novel, and really a good summer read. Dr. Iman Yahya has written The Mexican Wife. And Dr. Iman Yahya is a gentleman, not a lady. Iman is a common name. It can be used for men or for ladies. And here in our condition, our novelist name is Dr. Iman Yahya. He is a professor in medicine, one of the medical schools of Egypt. And he has one novel, writing by the Scalpel in the year of 2013. And this book, or this novel, The Mexican Wife. And yes, it's a very nice novel. Reading it grabs you to the years of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And reading it will keep you amused and astonished. Is this story a real story? Is this novel a real novel? A novel, fiction, or truth? It speaks about a very famous Egyptian writer. He didn't mention his name, but everybody who reads the novel will understand that it is speaking about a great champion of Egyptian literature. A man that I really do respect, and a man that I carry for him the utmost appreciation and utmost total respect. A man who was a physician by education, and at the same time a philosopher, a writer, and a great writer of short novels, short stories and novels, a man who kept his dignity and self-respect all through the years of his life, who was never attracted to the life of celebrities or trying to use and abuse his acquaintance to get benefits for himself, a man who, in the words of a lot of people and a lot of critics, deserve a Nobel Prize, and he never received it simply because Naguib Mahfouz received it before him, and they said that it was almost impossible for two famous writers from the same country to have such a Nobel Prize in literature in a very short time in difference. Unfortunately, he died in 1990, and is this story related to him? I don't know. Well, people say that he has written a novel in his early life about this experience, and he told his acquaintance that this is a memoir, not a story. That before he got married to his great Egyptian wife, he married a Mexican young lady who, by chance, is the daughter of a very famous artist, a very famous Mexican artist. How far is this story true? How far part of it is right and part of it is fictitious? We can never tell. But how Dr. Iman Yahya pulled the strings together and put and knitted the structure of the novel by reviving the main characters of the novel written originally by the writer in the 50s, and at the same time trying to improvise and make a new character of a professor of art in the American University in Cairo, meeting a very sophisticated young lady who is interested in art, and he's working in comparative art, comparative literature, and he's working in Arab literature. And she is an American with Mexican blood, with Egyptian descent, and she's interested in doing a research about the novel and about whether these characters are true or false, and how she is faring in the society of Cairo in the 2000s. So, reading such an interesting book by Dr. Iman Yahya, The Mexican Wife, is very attractive. Trying to solve the problem and try to find a real answer for all the questions that will pass through your head, you'll end up by raising more questions. So the cleverness and the sharpness of the writer attracts our attention from page 1. Making us trying to read and to reach the final conclusion for ourselves. How will the professor of literature in the AUC conclude his research? How this relation with the young lady that is doing this research for the Mexican, American, Egyptian descent will fare with him? What are the rules of the game? What are the allowed and not allowed? I will leave you to read The Mexican Wife by Dr. Iman Yahya. A great summer read. Well, we are still coming from Radio Cairo Studio 3. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Duha Muhammad is at the controls, and we are discussing the world of books in the world of info. And today we have presented 4 books: The Emperor of All Melodies, and The Shamandar by Khalid al-Khamisi, The Mexican Wife by Dr. Iman Yahya, and the 4th book is about art, and in particular about Vincent van Gogh. And yes, this book is written by a famous and a very interesting writer, and his name is Ralph Ski. Ralph Ski worked as a town planner, an architect, and was for many years senior lecturer in European urban conservation at the University of Dundee, Scotland. He's a painter, and his works have been exhibited widely since 1973, and he's the author of Vincent Gardens and Vincent Trees, and today we are having Vincent Portraits. A lot of people understand or think that Vincent van Gogh is very much famous for his gardens and trees. Well, yes, this is totally true. But Vincent Portraits have taken much of his life. And he is one of the very few painters who have, famous painters who have done self-portraits for themselves. And he's only beaten in that by Rembrandt. Rembrandt did 44 self-portraits, while Vincent van Gogh did for himself 39. The career of Rembrandt was almost more than 40 years, while the working career of Vincent van Gogh was 10 years only. So in 10 years, he did himself 39 self-portraits, 37 of them was oil painting on canvas. Wow, why? What would put a man in this challenge to draw himself over and over again? Well, let's talk about it in a more philosophical way. In the beginning, he's a self-taught painter, by the way, Vincent. And he has applied the method of self-teaching. So every time he's excelling his work and he's trying new techniques to produce better portraits. So this is one excuse. And the second excuse for drawing himself over and over, because every time he draws himself or he paints himself, he gives us another Vincent or another version of Vincent. Everybody was so absorbed in the life and melancholy of Vincent van Gogh, and was very absorbed in the tragic way he ended his life in suicide, and always keeping in consideration the fact that he was having self-mutilation stories, self-pity. But we're missing the most important point. Vincent van Gogh was one of the most eminent painters in the history of art. And the man was one of the most highly productive painters. Imagine he lived on our earth only for 37 years and dedicated only 10 years, the last 10 years of his life, for working as a painter, professional painter. Before that, he ended up doing a lot of jobs. So he worked in different aspects, worked as different jobs, but at the age of 27, he decided that he is going to find himself a career as an artist. He worked as a trainee, a dealer, a school teacher, a curate, a bookseller, and even a missionary. And in the last 10 years, he decided that he's going to be a painter. And what type of paintings he produced? He produced 900 paintings and 1,100 drawings. Imagine, in just 10 years. And we all are familiar with his use of yellow color. How yellow color is a color that is proved by a lot of psychologists to be one of the most beautiful colors that attract the attention and brings joy and happiness to the perceiver or the viewer. And the fact that he has done all this huge quality of paintings, we can find that all these paintings, every one of them deserves to be examined thoroughly and to admire thoroughly. And all his paintings are signed by his name, Vincent. So when he was asked, why do you use your first name and you never use the family name, he said, well, the family name outside Holland or Netherlands is going to be very difficult to pronounce. And actually it is pronounced wrongfully all over the world. For example, here in Egypt, we call him, or in Arabic, we call him Van Gogh, while his original name is Van Gogh. So he thought that Vincent is much easier for the people to pronounce. And yes, Vincent was an immortal painter, a man who has decided to paint the world and to be felt with emotion. But he was not a simple painter. He was a very well-read person, and at the same time a really good writer. He has written a lot of letters, mainly of course to his brother, and these letters include almost 800 letters that have been published all over the world and full of good prose. There are a lot of quotations that could be taken from his work and a lot of things that can be really analyzed from his emotions and his empathy with the poor and the impoverished. Well, one of the most beautiful paintings that Vincent has drawn was a still life about French novels. Well, on a table, Vincent has spread some of the books that he has in his own libraries, and most of the books have beautiful covers of off-yellow colors, and they are all put on one huge table, and you cannot miss the color yellow. Yes, books and reality and art are the same kind of thing for me. That's what Vincent has written, and that's how he describes his emotions. 2. The still life French novels. More about Vincent and more about Vincent portraits after the break. So this is World of Info, and today is the World of Books, and we are discussing the portraits of Vincent, the great Vincent van Gogh. And it's a book, as I have told you just before getting out to the break, by Ralph Ski, who's a Scottish lecturer and architect and a writer in art. He has written a book about the Vincent Vincent gardens and Vincent trees, and this book is about Vincent portraits. And yes, we should know that Vincent, in his choice of the people he has drawn their portraits, thought out people who seemed to him to epitomize the struggles of rural urban life, often selecting models who reminded him of fictional characters created by some of his favorite novelists, such as Emile Zola. Literary inspirations often underpinned his portraits, though without resulting in pure illustrative images. So, for him, he has decided to write description of his life. He has described or decided that he is going to analyze his illness, and he knew that it was a mental illness at that time with no cure. He was fought by his own demons, and he was trying to cure himself by painting continuously, relentlessly, and with all the possible energy till the very last moment of his life, when the demons won the game. And in what he has written, he shows us his empathy when he says, "It seems to me more and more that people are the roots of everything, and the impoverished people and the people who are poor and needy are the subjects of his portraits. When we look at these portraits, we'll find that this man has decided not to draw the famous and the rich, but to go down to the society where there are real people." For example, when he described the painting of peasants eating potatoes, when you see this painting, you'll find very poor people eating potatoes in a very darkly illuminated room. It looks very unhealthy. A man, a lady, and a daughter, a small young girl, and 3 ladies eating with all of the poverty and the sadness that you can see of a rustic meal, with the culmination of all Vincent portrait studies. So the 5 figures are he wanted to integrate them into a cohesive composition. And the family looks very impoverished. And he said, "The painting of the peasants eating potatoes that I did in Nun is, after all, the best thing I did." Why? It's not the most cheerful thing that he has drawn, but it is the most honest one that describes how everybody who's on this impoverished table is together with his family member and totally dissociated and distracted in his own self. As we go through the work of this beautiful book that describes handsomely the portraits of Vincent, we will see how he described, for example, his life when he was in Paris. He says, and of course this goes for Paris up till now, "Paris gives me air when I'm painting." Well, no sentence is better than that. As I told you, he was a good reader, and for him, he can always put and amalgamate a lot of sentences that shows us the beauty. Of course, the period of Paris has seen some cheerfulness in his portraits. And always he said, what I hope is to achieve a good portrait. The works and the times and the life of Vincent, that he can sketch and try always to excel, painting different appearances, and says in the end, in the beautiful paintings that he has done to the asylum, that he is voluntarily went to stay there concluding his life, he would say, and little by little, and I can come to consider madness as being an illness like any other. Well, a painted portrait is a thing of feeling made with love or respect for being represented. The work and the portraits of Vincent, a man who has enriched the life of humanity with 900 paintings and 1,100 drawings, of which a huge sum of portraits, and some of them are, almost 39 of them, are self-portraits, gives us an idea of a man full of empathy and sympathy, a man who has or was very honest with his subjects that he has drawn, respecting them, because as he said in his final words, a painted portrait is a thing of feeling made with love or respect for the being represented. Vincent Portraits by Ralph Ski, Khalil Khamisi Shamandar, The Emperor of All Melodies by Siddhartha Mukherjee, and The Mexican Wife by Dr. Iman Yahya were the books of the world of books today. My name is Amr Mabrouk. I will be honored to have you next week, same time, same station, same studio, with Duha Muhammad at the controls. The world of info, coming live from Radio Cairo. Have a beautiful weekend.